publicly, thank you, Team YMCA. This morning, the city staff and the YMCA folks who set up this site, but who aren't here at the moment, were assisted by volunteers from the Community State Bank who helped make light work with their many helpful hands. Ladies, I know you're here, you're in the back. Will all the CSB ladies please wave your hands so we can say thank you to you. It's a pleasure to have you. We also like to thank the Fishers Library for setting up a table late. Would all men and women veterans who have served in America's Armed Services please stand, accompanied by any family members with you as well. Thank you. Please be seated. The City of Fishers hopes that this ceremony both inspires everyone in attendance and reminds everyone of the great positions of honor in which military service members and their families are held by this community that they all call home. Mayor Fadness, on behalf of all veterans, their families, and friends assembled today, thank you, sir, for your personal encouragement and support regarding this ceremony and others of similar patriotic character that we have throughout the year. Also, members of the Fishers Armed Services Commission, we thank you, Mayor, for your innovative thinking during a conversation you had a couple years ago with City Council member Brad DeReamer and Navy veteran George Stavropoulos. That conversation directly led to the FASC being created in January 2021. As we near the end of our second year of serving this city, Mayor, I'm very pleased to say before this and every other audience that I can speak to that the FASC is fresh in our collective spirit, in our thinking regarding familiar work, and we are innovative to fulfill our purpose for the well-being of our city. Thank you for your leadership, sir. To that point, stand please, City Council members. Get comfortable because this is going to last for a minute. Brad, please stand back up, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, you were serving on the council in January 2021 and unanimously voted to codify and establish the Fishers Armed Services Commission. Thank you for your bipartisan foresight and for creating the Armed Services Commission and charging it to support this city and its citizens. Today, Fishers is the only city or town in Indiana with such a commission. But we stand ready to have conversations with representatives of other Indiana communities when they want to do for their citizens and veterans what you put into place 2 years ago. The FASC is grateful to assist the fulfillment of your vision of this city becoming a community where military service is honored and recognized as a key component to our vibrancy, where military service is incorporated and promoted in programming, policy decisions, and protocols, and to ensure that recognition and appreciation toward military service is woven throughout the community and understood as a critical component to the community's sense of place. It was intended by you, the members of the City Council, to institutionalize a method to positively touch those now serving in America's Armed Services, those veterans who have served, those desiring to serve, such as the 19 seniors and their parents from our city's 2 high schools we honored this past May as they neared graduation and were about to enter into America's Armed Services, and our entire community. This ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, is just one of the ways that your vision may be accomplished. Thank you, members of the Fishers City Council. Now that you all have taken your seats, I ask that any elected state and national government representatives please stand so that we may extend our gratitude to you for your service on our behalf to the state of Indiana and to the United States of America. Are there any elected officials in our presence besides the Secretary of State? The lineage of Veterans Day in the United States stretches back more than a century to late 1918 at the cessation of almost 4.5 years of war in Europe that had killed an estimated 9 million soldiers, 5 million civilians, and wounded almost 24 million other soldiers. On November 11th, 1918 at 11 a.m. in Paris, the war ended with the cessation documents being signed by belligerents. From that date forward, the world knew November 11th as Armistice Day. Almost 4 decades later, on May 26, 1954, by an act of the U.S. Congress, after what was known then as the Great War, but became known as World War I, World War II and the Korean War were fought. November 11th, Armistice Day in the United States, was renamed Veterans Day to honor all of the nation's soldiers, airmen, and sailors who had served and who were alive. That history, stretching back more than a century, is what brings us 69 years forward to this Veterans Day ceremony in Fishers. Chaplain Stump, will you please offer our ceremony's invocation?
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, it is in recognition of this year's Veterans Day we come to you with thanksgiving in our heart for all who have faithfully served in our armed services through all the history of our great nation. We ask that today our veterans will feel the honor and gratefulness they so deserve from all of us who enjoy the freedoms they have secured by your grace. It is altogether fitting and proper that we would set aside this day to honor and thank them for their sacrifice. May this ceremony be an encouragement to our veterans as it is a reminder to us that freedom has a cost. May you pour out your blessings on each of them, of our veterans today, and may we properly thank and honor them here. In Jesus' name I ask this. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Stump. Some of you may not know this, others of you might, but the city of Fishers is home to American Legion Post 470, which was chartered on June 13th, 1947. The post's namesake is Lowell Beaver, who was born in Fishers January 29th, 1918, which was the year the Great War ended. He graduated from Fishers High School in 1935 and enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps on December 1st, 1941. Post Commander Rapp and your predecessor as Post Commander Kyle Fisher, please conduct the POW MIA Remembrance Ceremony, symbolically seating with us our colleagues who are possibly prisoners of war and those who are still missing in action. By doing so, we thereby honor their families, and we use this occasion to assure them and remind ourselves that our nation's prisoners of war and those missing in action are not and never will be forgotten in Fishers.
Good morning. As you entered the ceremony today, you may have noticed a small table in place of honor. It is set for one. This table is a way to symbolize the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing in our midst. They are commonly known as POWs and MIAs. We call them brothers and sisters. A white tablecloth to symbolize the pure intentions of the service members who responded to the country's call to arms. A single rose in the vase symbolizes the blood that the service members have shed and sacrificed to ensure the freedom of the United States of America. This rose also represents the family and friends who keep the faith while awaiting the return of the missing service members. The red ribbon represents the love of country that inspire the service members to serve their country. A slice of lemon on the bread plate, that represents the bitter fate of the missing. Salt sprinkled on the bread plate, that symbolizes the tears shed by awaiting families. An inverted glass to represent the fact that the missing and fallen cannot partake. A lit candle symbolizes the light of hope that lives in the hearts to illuminate the way home. An empty chair to represent the absence of the missing and fallen. A POW MIA empty chair is placed at all official ceremonies of the American Legion as a physical symbol of many American POWs still unaccounted for from all wars and all conflicts involving the United States of America. This is a reminder for all of us to spare no effort to secure the release of any American prisoners from captivity, the recovery of the remains of those who died bravely in defense of our liberty, and a full accounting of those missing. Let us rededicate ourselves to this vital endeavor. Please place the POW MIA flag on the empty chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander Rapp, Legionnaire Fisher, and American Legion Post 470. Now, in continuous sequence, with no cues, the City of Fishers Police and Fire Honor Guard will present the colors. The White River Brass Troop will then play our national anthem, and George Stavropoulos will lead us in reciting our country's Pledge of Allegiance. I ask that the audience please stand and remain standing until the Honor Guard exits the gymnasium. be seated. Thank you, Chaplain Stump. The City of Fishers Police Honor Guard, Silver Star recipient, and Indiana Military Hall of Fame inductee George Stavropoulos and the White River Brass Troop. I'm now very happy to welcome Cynthia Ensign Bainey, the choral director of the Fishers Junior High School, and Tiffany Strauss, a resident of Fishers, for the playing and singing of Cynthia's original score and song entitled Honor.
They'll ask me to say a couple of words about how this song came to be, but before I do that, I just want to thank each of the veterans here for your service. I'm so grateful. Several years ago, well, more than 20 now, my dad, who was a Carmel resident and a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, retired. Some of you may know him. He was the president of the White River Officers Association involved with MOA, was tapped by Mayor Brainerd to erect a monument fitting as a place to honor all veterans in Hamilton County and everywhere. And so my dad chaired that committee, and you've probably seen it across from the Palladium, a beautiful, beautiful artistic rendition. I remember when my parents' living room was filled with all of the sculptor models from around the country, but my dad was determined an Indiana sculptor should be selected. We lost my dad 6.5 years ago, but as it was my dad's fashion at that time, he said, "Your mother and I have donated. My expectation is that all of my children will donate as well to the fundraising." And I knew what that meant, but I also knew that I was a teacher and that I needed to have a way, in addition to a financial gift, that I could honor him. And so this song came out of that. The music theme at the beginning, where you'll hear the augmented chord with the tension, represents one of my dad's military tasks, which was overseeing the refueling of jets mid-air. And so as they came close enough to, I don't even know how that happens, but many of you probably took part in things like that. And so it was my gift to him, but my dad would never let me say it was just for him. He can't argue with me now. He said I always had to say it was for all veterans, so it is for you as well. I'd like to introduce my dear friend, Tiffany Strauss. Tiffany's a professional vocalist in the area who does a lot of singing, was involved at the Indianapolis Children's Choir, probably from the very beginning, still involved as an alumni chapter, and I'm very grateful that she's here to sing it today. Thank you.
Everything's the same, yet somehow different. You prepared, then gave unselfishly. Skills and drills protect from unseen dangers. Sacrificial work to keep us free. And we say thank you for your gift of service. We say thank you for your Our hearts are grateful for your acts of courage. Our flag waves proudly as it has before. We're thankful that now you stand here with us. We express appreciation yet once more. We've set aside today to give you honor. And today we stand to give you praise. You have kept us safe, protected us from danger. Champions of liberty and grace. And we say thank you for your gift of service. We say thank you for your gift of care. Thank you to these honored servants, safekeepers of the land and sea and air. In reserve, on call or active duty, at home or work in your community, you pass to us the torch of civil service. Lord, bless us and keep our nation free. And we say thank you for your gift of service. We say thank you for your gift of care. Thank you to these honored servants, safekeepers of the land and sea and air. And we say thank you for your gift of service. We say thank you for your gift of care. Thank you to these honored servants, safekeepers of the land and sea and air. Thank you. We want to honor you. Thank you. We want to honor you.
Thank you, ladies. Today's keynote address will be given by Vice Admiral Terry Cross, U.S. Coast Guard retired. Vice Admiral Cross's biography is provided in your ceremony program, but the following detail is not within the text that you'll read because I wanted to say it during this introduction. It's of very high importance to us in Fishers, to the city of Carmel where Vice Admiral and Mrs. Cross live, and to the state of Indiana. 2 years ago, in November of 2021, Vice Admiral Cross was inducted into the Indiana Military Veterans Hall of Fame. It's a great pleasure to introduce a friend, a gentleman, and a patriot. Admiral, the floor is yours, sir.
Let me begin by thanking Mayor Fadness and the Fishers Armed Services Committee for giving me the opportunity to help you celebrate Veterans Day today. I've been to a number of these celebrations in places all over the country, and I've not seen anything except one visit to the White House to compare with this. You're all to be congratulated.
Thank you, sir.
Susan and I, by the way, Susan had a long-standing prior commitment, or she would have been here with me today. But she did have an input. You see, Elle originally suggested I wear a sport coat with a golf shirt. And I started to dress that way, and I got the inevitable, "You're not going like that, are you?" Hence, I dressed in one of my best suits, and I hope that's okay, Elle.
Welcome to Fishers, sir.
Susan and I moved to Carmel in 2010, and we found it to be a terrific place to live. But the only thing we knew about Fishers is that's where Conner Prairie was. A lot has changed in the years gone by, and we are both, along with many of our neighbors, are amazed at the growth of Fishers, and we are so happy that you're our neighbors. You're doing a wonderful job here, and we appreciate that too. I also want to thank Elle for that introduction a bit, and also in my bio, where it points out that I'm a Coast Guard officer. Being a Coast Guard officer in central Indiana is sometimes like being the Easter Bunny. Your mother told you there was one, but you never saw it. Over the past several years, I've had a number of opportunities to address audiences on Veterans Day. And I welcome those invitations for a couple of reasons. First, they provided me with a teaching opportunity, because you see, mostly those opportunities involved my speaking at Pleasant View Elementary School in Zionsville or the middle school in Zionsville. And the neat thing about those opportunities was at least one of our 3 grandchildren, and sometimes 2, were in the audience. So I could be assured of at least a couple of people clapping. Those speeches were easy for me to draft because they had to be expressed in simple terms. So I would often talk about the history of Veterans Day, pointing out that originally it was Armistice Day to celebrate the end of World War I and the tragic loss associated with that war to end all wars. And I would also point out the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. It's amazing to me how many people conflate those two. Of course, Memorial Day is to honor those who gave their lives for our freedom in service of our country. Here on Veterans Day, we're honoring everyone who served honorably in any one of the nation's 5 armed forces. And until yesterday, that was the kind of talk I planned to do today. But I found it was going to be a little more difficult. If you wanted, I think Elle did a good job of talking about the history of Veterans Day. But if you want to hear the absolute every detail about it, call General Stu Goodwin from the Indiana War Memorial Museum. He has one that will last for 10 minutes, and you will be amazed at the details. So what was I going to do? I don't talk about that. What to talk about? Well, my next thought was to talk about the situation in some of our armed forces today. But the more I looked into the situation, the less encouraged I was. Retention is down, recruiting is down. It was hard to find a good thing to say about where we're going with the armed forces today. In fact, I kind of got an idea about that last week. I spent a week in San Diego attending a Coast Guard Aviation Association meeting. And when some headquarters people came to talk to us about where we were in aviation in the Coast Guard, first learned that our pilot cadre is down 10% from what's authorized and funded. I don't know what that means to the other services. I suspect it's serious, but for the Coast Guard, it's drastic. Many parts of Coast Guard aviation operate like the fire department. 24 hours of duty. The difference between the Coast Guard aviation cadre and the fire department is our aviators and air crew don't get the days off. That's just another day and life goes on. So on an average week, you would stand the watch maybe twice for 24 hours. Now they're doing it 3 times, and if this shortage continues, like over next summer when you have a tenth of the force in moving from place to place, they'll be lucky to get 1 day off a week, if they're lucky. Then we asked them questions about, why is this? What's the problem? And they told us that the problem was the airlines are aggressively hiring. Well, I spent 36 years in the Coast Guard, 35 of those in Coast Guard aviation, and we've seen aggressive airline hiring before, many times before. And we never had the experience we're having now with a 10% shortage. Didn't really have a better way to ask a question, so we let that pass. And then later, we were also told that the Coast Guard's about to decommission 10 cutters. Why? Because they don't have the people to staff them, to man the cutters. I don't think the airlines are hiring those people. One other issue that the aviation force is facing has to do with the training command. Coast Guard aviators go through the Naval Aviation Training Command like Navy officers and Marine Corps officers. We were told that it now takes up to 3 years to get a trained aviator from the Naval Aviation Training Command. Just a benchmark for you, I arrived in Pensacola to start my flight training in September of 1971. I got my wings in September of 1972. And I would have actually have got them in the end of August, but they only did winging ceremonies every other week. So we've gone from 1 year to up to 3 years. That's hard. So I decided to try to talk about something more positive. As a returning Hoosier, I don't think it was mentioned in my bio that I grew up in Richmond, Indiana.
Yes, sir.
So as a returning Hoosier, I was really happy to see, and this is an example of it today, what great patriots we have in Indiana, at least in central Indiana. And I have some words to back that up. First, look at what's going on here today. This is absolutely amazing, and it's an example of what I'm talking about. Second, when I did those speaking events at the Zionsville schools, the gymnasiums were always packed, just like this gymnasium is packed. They included patriotic songs, including the service medley, and my favorite thing was a slideshow. The teachers would ask the students to bring in pictures of members of their family that were veterans. And then during a portion of the program, those pictures were shown in a rolling slideshow at a huge screen in back of the podium. And my favorite part was, while it was all carefully managed and it was done fairly quietly, you could hear kids saying, "That's my dad. That's my mom." My favorite thing to hear was, "That's Papa and Uncle Sean. I'm Papa." Third, veterans have a lot of company in Indiana. Google tells me that over 6% of the entire population of Indiana are veterans. And if you take out the fact that good portion of the population's under 18, it becomes even a bigger number. So I'm at home here. Fourth, Indiana honors veterans. Locally, we have more veterans monuments than any other metropolitan city in the country. Now, I know there's at least 3 or 4 people out there thinking, Washington, D.C., really? Well, technically, Washington, D.C. is not a city. It's a District of Columbia. If you want to count them, I never do, but if you want to count them, we're second. Perhaps the best example is the Indiana War Memorial Museum. It's a magnificent tribute to the history of our country and the history of Hoosier veterans, from George Rogers Clark to the Gulf War veterans. If you haven't been there, you should go. I know you'll enjoy it. It's free. Only one caution, it does close one day a month, and sometimes it's not always the same day. So check out the schedule. The Indiana War Memorial Plaza, downtown. It starts south of the Indianapolis Public Library. It's bordered by Pennsylvania Avenue and Meridian, or Pennsylvania Street and Meridian Street. And it runs all the way to the Circle, Monument Circle. If you have some time to spend there, here's what you'll find. 3 parks, at least 8 memorials dedicated to honoring the service of Hoosier veterans. And of course, there are many other monuments, including the Soldiers and Sailors Monument itself on the Circle and other statues around the Circle. Not sure everyone here knows, I'm sure some of you do, but around the Circle there's a perimeter of bricks. And you can buy those bricks to honor a veteran. All that's required, other than a donation to pay for it, is a DD-214 proving service. Susan and I have bought 8 of those bricks. 1 for me, 1 for our son, each of our dads, my grandfather, her brother, and a couple of Civil War veterans of mine, ancestors of mine, who served in the Civil War. There's one individual, I used to manage the brick program. There was one individual who at last count, at least that I was aware of, had bought 15 bricks. The first one was for one of his ancestors that served in the Revolutionary War. There are some other monuments in the city as well, include the World War II Memorial, 9/11 Memorial, the USS Indianapolis Memorial, and the Medal of Honor Memorial along the canal downtown. And I'm sure there are some I've probably failed to mention. And Elle mentioned earlier the Indiana Hall of Fame, Veterans Hall of Fame, located in Fort Harrison. Magnificent building. It's worth taking a trip there. And they also will sell you bricks to honor your favorite veteran. Importantly, each of these monuments inform the public about how the service and sacrifice of vets have kept our country free. I was going to say safe, and then I thought of 9/11, so I settled for free. Another thing, the American Legion was mentioned earlier. The American Legion is special. I think a lot of people don't realize, for example, that it was highly responsible for the advent of the GI Bill. My son is currently sending 2 of his children to college from his GI Bill. So it's going on today. I'm personally a member, and if you're not a member and a veteran, I encourage you to consider joining. Now, one that I didn't initially think of, I'm a member of the Service Club of Indianapolis. There are some other members here today. So far, they haven't hissed or hooted me, so I'm feeling better about what I'm saying. And at least one of them's in the Navy. He and I, we have issues. However, when the members of the club tend to be older, the average age is over 80. And when these fellows tell me that they get outstanding medical care at the Ratibus Medical Hospital, I believe them. I don't think VA hospitals around the country necessarily have that reputation, but if you're a veteran and you need help, that's a place to go. And I get some guys over here shaking their heads yes. Finally, the last piece. I recognized all those things not long after I got here, and about the only complaint I received about how Indiana treated its veterans was the fact that retired veterans still had to pay taxes. Well, in Indiana now, they don't. State income tax is exempt, retired pay. It's another great reason for being a veteran in Indiana. I think I'm going to end with a quote. I mentioned I was a member of the Service Club, proud member of the Service Club, past vice president, past president, now been relegated to chairman of the membership committee. I'm also the guy who provides the quote of the week. And this week, the quote I used, these guys are going to hear it for the second time, goes like this. A hero is someone who understands the responsibility that comes with freedom. Now, if you Google Veterans Day quotes, you're going to find 1,000 good ones. I chose this one because of the author. The author is Bob Dylan. Now, if you're younger than, say, 50 years old, you may not even know who he is. But he was a counterculture, anti-war guy back in the 60s. Sounds like he's changed his mind about some things. So thank you again for having me. I appreciate everybody being here, and what a wonderful audience you've been.
Admiral, please step forward. There's a tradition in military commands most of us are familiar with. It's called a challenge coin or a command coin, usually awarded by the commanding officer and with a handshake. I know the mayor's not a big coin guy, according to the deputy mayor. That's the bus that's going over you, Elliot. But the Fishers Armed Services Commission has a coin now. And I have the prototype. We don't have a stock of them. And I met the Secretary of State here, and I said, the next time I see you, sir, in exchange for the coin that you gave me this morning, I will give you one of ours. But I said, the only one I've got today is going to our guest speaker. Carrie, this coin says City of Fishers Armed Services Commission, patriotism, service, country, community, and on the back it has the American flag, seals of our military services. Sir?
Thanks, Al. Just brought to mind, one of the regrets I had about my retirement, I had a collection of probably 60 or 70 of these coins. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. So I sent most of them to the Coast Guard Museum, the History Museum for the Coast Guard. I wish I'd held on to them. Thanks.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. We will now enjoy the playing of the Armed Forces Medley because, as the Admiral noted, that's a traditional part of Veterans Day ceremonies, but we do it all the time here at Fishers. My wife, Kathy, and I just celebrated our 50th anniversary, and Admiral, in honor of Susan saying you weren't dressed right, after Memorial Day this year, she said in her exceptionally effective manner that she's developed over the years to communicate with me with no uncertainty to make sure I got the message, that it was inappropriate, downright unreasonable for me to say, please hold your applause while the songs are being played so that we can a flag. That will be the first note of the next service. When you see that flag go up, listen to me, and I will tell you what that service is. Okay? So the guys, when you see the flag, next cue to me, up stands your song. Clap if you want, folks, because my wife is going to win this one no matter what I say. And I want you all to know that at Memorial Day, for those of you who are here, we had a gentleman, his name was Richard, and he walked into the ceremony wearing a t-shirt with a U.S. Space Force emblem on his shirt. And I said, whoa, holy mackerel, man. Never seen one of those. He says, I just graduated from Purdue. I'm going to join the Space Force. And I said, well, I got a problem. We don't have your music today. He said, nobody has this music yet because they're a new service. And I challenged John to find the music. And today, for the first time in a service medley in the city of Fishers, mark your calendars, you're going to hear the theme for the U.S. Space Force. Okay? There, we continue to be innovative. So well done, John. Can you play and wave the flag at the same time? But you're going to... Okay. Lead us in the service medley, please. Coast Guard. And to keep the mood rolling, it's now a great privilege to introduce the re-elected mayor of the city of Fishers, Scott Faddes.
El, as chairman of the committee, dare I say I saw a bit of bias in your response to those songs. Supposed to be here for all branches of the service, I believe, El. So check that next year, please. First and foremost, thank you all for being here. Thank you to all of our veterans. Thank you to the committee, and thank you to our council members for their support in this endeavor. You know, I've been involved in a lot of change here in the city of Fishers, and my observations is they tend to have a similar pattern. It starts with an idea, and then you work on an initiative, and then through competency and commitment, you hope that you might actually create a tradition. And then from that tradition, dare you hope that you might actually change the culture of a community. And what I'm excited about to say today is we've come a long ways in that progression. You know, we've gone beyond ideas and through our staff's commitment and compassion around this issue, and then the traditions that we've had. I mean, every Veterans Day, every Memorial Day, we're here, and we're glad to be here, and we're proud to be here. And through those traditions and through the innovation of our committee, we're starting to actually change the culture in our community. So I'm proud today to say that I live in a community that, if you're a veteran that graces the doorsteps of the city of Fishers boundaries, that we're proud to have you here, and that we're glad to have you here, and that we demonstrate that in so many different ways. Not just in monuments, but in the day-to-day things that we do. I'm proud that our Deputy Mayor, Elliot Hulkran, who's a commander in the U.S. Navy, got to spend time with his family this morning at a school where they celebrated this. I'm proud of the fact that my son, who's a third grader, was nervous about singing the Army song this morning at his school. He didn't know, and I'm proud of the work that we're doing to inspire the next generation to solve potentially some of the workforce problems that the Admiral mentioned. So we're innovating, we're creating. And by God, I think we're changing the culture here in our city to be just a little bit more patriotic than others, and I'm proud of that fact. So thank you all very much for that.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you and Vice Admiral Cross please come forward for the presentation of pins to all veterans assembled today? I'd like to quickly add, veterans, that this pin this year is a new one for the city of Fishers to be presented to veterans. Take a look at that, sir. It is engraved with 2023 on its face so that pin collectors will have that as a keepsake associated with this calendar year's Veterans Day ceremony. Next year's tradition will say 2024, and it'll begin on Veterans Day, I think. It might begin earlier in March. We don't know when 2024 is going to be recognized, but it's going to be one of those traditions that the mayor's talked about. So I'm going to invite all veterans. Yeah, there's two of them. Starting probably with this row, let's just go across. Come forward and get your pins from the mayor and from the admin. Here we go.
They only get one, right?
They only get one. Appreciate you, sir.
all won't remember my name.
I have a daughter entering in 24.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. I saw you.
She just got a letter of assurance.
Okay.
So they flew her out there. And
Afterwards, I'll put it in my phone.
I would love that.
Things. But yeah, class of 2002, I just retired last year. So I
She
did a
would
full
probably
career
love to
too.
connect
So
with you. Amazing.
Yeah, I saw you walk in with the West Point.
Thank you for
shirt on,
your
so,
service.
Yeah, thank you. Proud to serve.
Thank you, Admiral. Mayor. It's now my pleasure to introduce Olivia Hatton, a student at Fishers Junior High School. Accompanied by Cynthia Ensign-Bainey, Olivia will sing Song for the Unsung Hero, written by Joseph M. Martin.
Let us sing for unsung heroes, those who lay their dreams aside, choosing honor more than glory, pledging faith with quiet pride. Those whose uniform is courage, yet are unashamed of tears, finding in their love of freedom power stronger than their fears.
before you, senior son of liberty. Set a scene for unsung heroes, those who answered freedom's call, those united by one purpose, one for all and all for one. We will sing and not be silenced, we will keep our voices strong, for as long as we keep singing, freedom's cry will still live on. Sing a song for unsung heroes, sing from sea to shining sea, as the faithful sing before you, sing a song of liberty. Sing a song for unsung heroes, sing from sea to shining sea, as the faithful sing before you, sing a song of liberty.
Olivia, you made us proud. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in a moment, Chaplain Stump will come forward to offer our benediction, and our ceremony will then be finished. Thank you again for taking time today to join together as citizens of the City of Fishers and as citizens of America to honor her veterans. I read a report last night of a recent survey conducted in September and October, just last month and the month before, and I sent it to the FAST because I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was conducted by USAA, a well-respected insurance company that specializes in service to members of the armed services and their family. I've got the report on my phone if you want it. But in that survey of more than 1,700 people, USAA discovered that almost 25% of the civilians that were polled had no clue why Veterans Day was celebrated. Yeah, picture that. Now, I know the gentleman who is wearing athletic clothes is a veteran, so I'm going to use this line. If any of those civilians with that awareness deficit walked into this gym to just shoot hoops today, it's my hope and indeed our prayer that this ceremony has helped you understand why Veterans Day is in our country. Amen? Now, Chaplain Stump, come forward and offer a benediction for our ceremony. Gary, by the way, for everyone's information, he's the senior pastor for the Onward Christian Church here in Fishers, and Gary also serves as the senior pastor to the members of the Fishers Police and Fire Departments and their families. Gary, thank you for your distinguished service to our community as well.
I just have to say it is such an honor to be here every time. I'm amazed. Let's close in prayer. Our Father and our God, we thank you for these United States of America and for the veterans who we pay tribute to today. From the shores of Tripoli to the villages of Afghanistan, our veterans have fought to let freedom ring. May our veterans today feel the honor of a grateful nation. To paraphrase King Solomon, we rise up to call them blessed. Reward them for all they have done. Let their deeds publicly declare their praise. The prayer that President Roosevelt prayed for D-Day 79 years ago, you have answered, for you have led these veterans straight and true. You have given strength